right, everybody, welcome back. Just want to, very excited to welcome a new guest. This is Inside Look, South Jersey Girls Basketball. And today I have a special guest. This is J Senft. He's from the head coach of Highland High School Girls Basketball. And he's been nice enough to kind of chat it up a little bit and agree to be a guest. So I just want to welcome you to the podcast. How you doing, Jay?
Well, thanks a lot for having me on. I really appreciate it. And before we get started here, Mike, I just wanted to thank you so much for all you've been doing over the last year now for South Jersey Girls Basketball. I really enjoy your content. I know that I hit you with Twitter mentions all the time and stuff like that, and you're always nice enough to retweet my stuff and help me get my kids' information out there. And I think you do a great job. I love how you're trying to get information out there and be a cheerleader for our kids and spread information. I love what you're doing. I love your information, and I'm glad to be here and get to talk to you today.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And, we were talking earlier and, this is just fun. I love talking to the different coaches and players, and I love meeting the parents. I'm a people person. So it gives me like a little outlet, now that my girls are involved with sports and basketball, especially, it gets me involved in that area, but it gives me some, gives them some space, it lets them be who they want to be. And I can, do my thing. And then we can just enjoy watching their games. So why don't we just talk about, where you grew up and about your family?
Sure. So, excuse me. I grew up in Mount Ephraim, New Jersey, I've live now in Medford Lakes, right around the corner from you there in the Evesham Marlton area. My wife and I, Rachel, are over here in Medford Lakes with our daughter Abigail, who's 8 years old in third grade. Our pup Riley. We love it out here. It's a beautiful place. It's a great place to live for kids. It's a lot of fun. It's also a great place to live for a basketball coach. I feel like I live in like the community of basketball coaches. I walk around the corner. Every time I walk my dog, I'm gone for 2 hours because I run into Chrissy McGovern around the corner, and I get stuck to, not stuck. I get the opportunity to talk to her, and I run into Rob Hummel around the other corner and I talk to him, or, I run into Kevin Crutchy and I talk to him for a while. So, it's a great place for a basketball coach because there's all sorts of basketball coaches. Brian Anderson lives around the corner, former coach at Shawnee. I talk to him all the time. Well, every once in a while. It's a great place for basketball coaches. It's a fun place for kids to live. It's a cool opportunity to live here.
Yeah. We were talking about it earlier. All the kids either walk or ride their bike to school. It's just a great community to be in. The kids have a lot of independence, but it's still a small town. They still know each other. They know pretty much, all the kids in their grade and probably that school because it is a small community, and it's just a fun place. And we talked about the canoe carnival. They're famous for the canoe carnival. That's just a great time. It's something that I guess started out so small and it's just grown and it's just so popular. And everybody knows Medford Lakes either for the Cathedral in the Woods, Riviera Pizza, which is kind of, I guess, Medford Lakes, and the canoe carnival.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. For those people listening who don't know what canoe carnival is, if you know what Night in Venice is in Ocean City, think Night in Venice, but not with really expensive yachts. Think of Night in Venice on a canoe. That's the canoe carnival, and it's a lot of fun. The town basically shuts down. Bikes get left everywhere. People just randomly walk. If you live on a lake, your house is basically open to anybody who wants to come in. It's a big party. It's a lot of fun. It's a real good time. That's all I'm going to say about that, Mike. I don't want to get myself in trouble.
Definitely a lot of fun. So where'd you go to high school?
So I grew up in Mount Ephraim. I went to Audubon High School. I graduated in 1995. While I was over at Audubon, I loved my time at Audubon. Both my parents graduated from Audubon. My entire family went to the same high school. In fact, I still have relatives that go to Audubon High School today. While I was there, I played football and basketball. For basketball, I played for a guy named Don Borden, who's now the president of Camden County College, who was a great coach. I love Don Borden. He's one of my mentors, one of my favorite people that's ever lived. I really enjoyed playing for him.
Okay. So then after high school, then you went to college. So what did you do in college? What did you study?
So I went to Rowan University, and I studied history, and secondary education. And it was it was a great time. I loved Rowan. I had the opportunity to live there for a little bit, which you know probably wasn't the greatest fiscal decision, but it was a good growing decision. Learned to be independent for a little bit, and you know, got along that way. I didn't get the chance to play sports in college. Quite honestly, it just wasn't big enough, fast enough, strong enough. I grew a lot from my junior year on. I grew, but even then, I wasn't. When I was at Rowan, their basketball team was competing for national titles, and they had guys there that were 6'8" and dunking on everybody. So, I certainly wasn't that. But, played intramurals, had a lot of fun with that, and still stayed active playing a lot of pickup basketball, playing in men's leagues. I started playing men's leagues as soon as I left high school, started doing stuff like that as well.
So what made you become a teacher?
So I had wonderful history teachers all throughout high school, middle school, and high school. I had teachers like a guy named Mr. Greg Francis, who was one of my favorite history teachers I ever had. Mr. Kevin Clements, who's now a vice principal down in Hamilton, and then Don Borden. These guys were all history teachers. They were all coaches, and they made history come alive. They made school interesting. They made school fun for me. And history was always something that I really liked talking about. I loved learning about. I couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't stop reading about it. I couldn't stop watching things about it. And I just wanted to do it. And, I talked to some of those guys. I talked to Mr. Francis. I talked to Mr. Clements and Mr. Borden. And they said, hey, why don't you think about, being a teacher? And, that's really the only thing I ever wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a coach. And, that's the only thing I ever planned on. So I'm kind of glad it worked out.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about maybe some coaching for a little bit. So
Sure.
you graduate from school, obviously start working in the field, getting some experience. And here you are, you're getting into coaching. So how long have you been coaching, and then how did you get your start?
It's a crazy story. I actually started coaching before I got a teaching job. I student taught in 1999, the fall of 1999 at Highland High School. And when I first started student teaching there, a guy named Tom Dottie was the assistant head coach for football. And honestly, going into coaching, I thought football was going to be the thing that I was going to do. I loved coaching football. I loved everything about football. I wanted to do football. All I wanted to do was football. And Tom Dottie grabbed me. He was another history teacher at Highland. And he's like, hey, you're going to come volunteer. You're going to coach football with us in the fall. I was like, okay. So I started working with Tom Dottie, and he was the associate head coach. He was the defensive coordinator at Highland at the time. And we had a pretty good season that year. And I really fell in love with coaching at that point, especially working with Tom, learning how to game plan, learning how to prepare, watching film, doing reports and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. So that was before I even got hired. The next fall, I was looking for a job. I graduated from college. I was looking for a job over the summer. And a gentleman by the name of Dennis Vespi, who happened to live around the corner from where my parents live, was looking for a football coach. He was then head football coach at Triton High School. So he called me up and told me to come visit him at his house that around the corner from where my parents lived. He interviewed me on the spot and hired me as an assistant football coach at Triton. I didn't even know I was going to an interview. I probably had a pair of shorts on and a pair of sneakers. I didn't even know I was going to an interview. Dumb kid, just graduated college, right? So, he asked me, he goes, what are you going to do, for a job? Do you have any teaching jobs? I said, I've been on a couple of interviews. I haven't gotten anything yet. He goes, tomorrow, wear a shirt and tie and come see me at Triton. said, okay. So the next day I put on a shirt and tie and I go see him at Triton. By the end of that day, he had me hired as an instructional aide at Triton. He had his buddy make a position for me at Triton as an instructional aide to get me in the building because he hired me as a football coach. So that's how I got my start. The fun thing is 2 weeks into the school year, a teacher at Highland resigned who happened to be a history teacher. And I got moved to Highland as a history teacher because they were in a lurch for a history teacher. And that's how I got over to there. So I actually got my start coaching football. That year, I also, because I was at Highland as a teacher that first year, I volunteered as a basketball coach with the girls basketball program. I volunteered with the freshman girls basketball coach to work with her. She asked me to come out and help her. And, she had a bunch of kids. She needed some help. So I went out and helped her. And I really started liking coaching basketball. It's the first time I ever coached basketball. Had a great time doing that. The next year, a guy named Harold Little, who was the boys coach at Highland, hired me as his freshman coach. I worked for him for 2 years. And then Dan McGettigan, who was the girls coach at Highland at the time, came and talked to me in 2003, the 2003-2004 school year. His assistant coach had resigned and he needed a JV coach and asked me if he wanted somebody in the building, asked me if I would take his JV job. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to take your JV job because, that's a step up. That's a step up from a freshman coach in my mind. So I took his JV job and, I worked with Dan for a number of years after that. And that was a great choice at that point because that team was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you enjoy the most about coaching?
I'll tell you what, coaching, the best thing about coaching is relationships. You get to meet so many people, the kids, you get to see the kids on such a different level and such a different way. The parents that you meet, the different coaches that you meet, the people that you work with, you get lifelong friends, and the relationships you develop with people is such a wonderful thing. It's different. It's so different than teaching. So probably that's the best part. But I'm going to be honest, I love the competition. I love competing. I love preparing for competition. I love trying to figure out how we're going to be competitive, how we can win a game, how we can go in and, undo that defense, or, figure out that offense, or whatever it is we have to do to win that game. That competition is, it is something that drives me. I love that aspect of coaching. It's something that is very, motivating for me. And it's hard to explain, I guess. It's just something that it's a lot of fun for me.
That's pretty cool. So how would you describe your coaching philosophy? So, what do you focus on and what do you believe in as far as, when you're coaching that team?
I'll tell you what, that's a great question. And I made sure I prepared this because I wanted to make sure I had this one down, because I know, from watching your podcast, I know that you asked this question. So I did prepare for this one, Mike. I'm going to tell you. I think our philosophy is, at this point, I want to help my athletes prepare to be the best versions of who they can be. Whether that's to be the best basketball player they can be, like a kid like Ayana Bay, who her freshman year, I thought I was going to have to get a new backboard because she was throwing the ball through it, and then ends up being a 1,000-point scorer and 980 rebounds in her high school career, and goes on to be a two-time conference player of the year, Division II All-American. She's best version of a basketball player she could be. Or if it's the best student that they can be, I have a kid named Lila Hagerman this year who is a 4.5 GPA, and she's going to Cornell. It's like, I want the kids to be able to be the best version of who they can be, or if it's the best leader they can be. I have had kids who weren't the greatest athletes who learn to be great leaders, and use what it is they learn in basketball and in sports to become great leaders. So we try to put them in the position to become the best versions of who they are. We also want to celebrate all their accomplishments. Anything that they do, any accomplishments that they get, we celebrate the heck out of it. We want to be as supportive and nurturing as possible to all of our kids, no matter how big or small. And I think probably our overall philosophy is that it's a philosophy of family. I tell my girls all the time that, and it drives my wife up the wall, but I tell my kids all the time that, that they're my daughters. I treat them just like I treat my own kid. And I see them just like I see my own daughter. And that's how I view them, and I would do anything for them.
Yeah, I think that's really necessary. The family atmosphere, I find, seems to be a common theme for a lot of the coaches, and I think it really helps the kids. Especially when they're coming back and they're coming back to visit you, and you played an important role. I think that's really important. So what about your coaching style? Like, what kind of coach are you? Like, how would you describe how you are on the sidelines or in practices?
That's another good question. It could change from day to day. And honestly, I know that sounds silly. It does change year to year. It changes from group to group. So, I think you have to evaluate your group. There's teams that you're going to have where you're going to expect a whole lot out of. Like, I'm sure if you have a group like Ron Powell has, where, you have, studs everywhere, or a group that Elisa Steele has, where you look around and you have 80 points looking at you on a given night, right? You're going to coach that kid a lot differently than if you look around and you have kids who can't dribble, right? So you're going to coach them a whole lot differently, and your style is going to be a whole lot different. And I've had both. I mean, I've been 27-2, and I've been 0-23. So I've had both of those types of groups, and you gotta temper that based on who you are and who you have. I think my style, as far as who I am on the sideline, has changed over the years. I used to be one of those obnoxious, scream at everything and scream at the officials and stomp up and down the sidelines and stuff like that. And that I'm not going to lie, that occasionally happens still every once in a while. But it's much fewer and far between now than it used to be. You try not, I purposely try not to act like that anymore. It's much more focused now and much more directed to what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do. It's not a lot of yelling. It's, I'm loud. I mean, I'm just a loud person, but it's not screaming and yelling, not berating. My kids I treat my kids like I treat my daughter, honestly. And, it's scold in private, praise in public. If something, they're not doing something right, they're the only one who's going to know. Yeah, I'm not embarrassing kids in front of the gym. I'm not screaming and yelling at them. Nobody else is going to know if they're not doing something right except for them. And I think the kids appreciate that and stuff like that. Now, do I have the occasion to yell every once in a while at an official? That does happen. I think that happens to every coach every once in a while. I've seen the best coaches that happens to them every once in a while. And honestly, sometimes it happens because you're not so much frustrated at the officials, but you're frustrated as what's going on. And you really can't yell at your kids that much. Sorry, officials.
I think it works out that way. And I know it's funny because there's a network of coaches, there's a network of parents, there's a network of players, and there's a network of referees. And I would assume that, most of them kind of get the idea of how things work. And it's just a part of the dynamics. You know what I mean? Like, I think at the end of the day, we all respect each other, and they all just want to see, number one, a good game, so that the kids are having a good experience and it's good exposure for the teams. Everybody's safe, and then at the end of the day, it's just really a game. And I think once you walk out of the gym, it's over, and you get to move on, which is the nice thing about sports.
For sure. It's never personal. It's never personal. Like, I'm never personally upset with anybody. You know what I mean? It's like at the end of the game, it's like, hey, good job. Have a great night. See you later. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So let's, I want to talk a little bit about your teams, because you had mentioned that you had some really, successful teams over the years. And for me, that's really interesting. One of the reasons why I find it interesting is that, a lot of people don't know the history and really know much about teams in South Jersey,
Yeah.
Especially if they're not from the area. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your program history, and maybe you could talk about maybe your more successful years, and go about that team a little bit. Talk about the team.
Sure, no problem. I'd be happy to. I love I love talking about history.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that as a program, Highland traditionally isn't one of the traditional powers of South Jersey, for sure. But Dan McGettigan did a great job in the early 2000s of helping to build Highland into a pretty good program. He had a group of players that graduated in 2004 that were exceptional. Our 2004 team, which I was fortunate enough to be on the coaching staff for, we were actually ranked number 22 in the country. And we had 3,000-point scorers, and one of those 1,000-point scorers was actually a 2,000-plus point scorer. That's Coach Lisa Steele over at Paul VI, who actually played for me, and actually works with me now, right across the hall from me. So, so we see each other every day. But we were really good. All three of those players were D1 basketball players. They all went and played. One of them ended up getting drafted into the WNBA and was a EuroLeague All-Star for a number of years, and two of them coached actually all three of them coached collegiately, that was a phenomenal group of players and a team that we had that year in 2004. After that, obviously after losing that collection, we were still competitive for a couple of years. I can recall playing a playoff game either the following year or the year after that versus Middle Township. And I'm not sure if Coach Leahy was the coach of Middle Township or not. He'll have to remind me. But we played Middle Township in a playoff game, and I believe the final score was 23-22. And I'm pretty sure Middle Township hit a shot at the buzzer to make it 23-22 at the buzzer at Highland. And it was, and it was a great game to watch. I'll tell you what, it was a 23-22 game, and it was a great game to watch. It was defensively, our defense was on point, their defense was on point, and it was just a battle. Obviously Coach Leahy's team score a lot more points now. He does a great job down there. But our program, once Dan, he left, he went down to St. Joe's and built a pretty nice program down at St. Joe's. I took over at Highland in the 2008 season. I had to start rebuilding, and it took a couple of years to rebuild. Took several years to rebuild. There was an offer season in there, quite honestly, where, like I said, we worked every day on, this is how you dribble. This is how you dribble. This is how you shoot the ball. We got back to the playoffs a couple of years after that. We've been able to, find some success playing against schools that have been a lot better than us as far as having feeder programs and traditional basketball success. When you talk about Williamstowns and Clearviews and Kingsways and things like that, was just the conference we were in for most of that time. Our 2016 team was exceptional. We had a freshman come in by the name of Azana Baines, who was phenomenal. Scored close to 500 points for me as a freshman. Who was, could have been player of the year as a freshman, quite honestly. If they gave that award to freshmen, who was unreal. And my team that year, I had 4 6-footers on my team. We were ginormous. We got into a zone. When we would play a zone, there was nowhere to go. And I had a couple kids who could shoot. I had a dominant post player in Ayana Bay, and we were really good. We ended up being 27, 28-2, 27-2, something like that. Ended up losing the South Jersey semis. After, in the game before that, I lost 2 starters, and so played the South Jersey semis, and we lost by 1 in the South Jersey semis to Toms River East in a real good game. And then 2 years ago, we riled off 16 wins in a row to start the season. with a real nice group of kids that I had, led by a girl named Zamira Montgomery, who ended up averaging 19 points a game. And Tara Dyro, who was one of the leaders in the States in blocks, and a couple other kids who just worked their way up through my program and learned how to play and learned how to play together. And we ended up winning a game or two and winning a game in the playoffs, and then going down and facing that Jay Handy guy down at Winslow. Well, that Winslow team down there, and losing down there to a real good Winslow team in the playoffs. But we've had some success, and we do what we can. And I love my kids. I wouldn't trade them. They work really hard for me.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I mean, it sounds like you had, I guess like a roller coaster ride seems like, but that's part of growth. You get good classes of kids where you have a really strong program and they work their way through the program, and then it's time to build again and kind of climb that mountain again, which is fine. I mean, and that's what basketball is all about. I mean, it's about longevity. It's about being committed to a program. It's about working with the kids, seeing the talent that you got, figure out their level, and then trying to bring out the best in them, which is, it seems like exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
So talk about, how things were last year so that we can get maybe caught up to date a little bit. So
Yeah.
how did things go and where are they going?
So coming into last year, we graduated about 95% of our scoring from the year before. I graduated, like I said, a real nice group of seniors, and a nice group of kids who had worked their way up through my program and had learned how to play really well and play really well together, and knew how to do things for me, and knew how to play really, could really go. I mean, they could go. We graduated that group, and coming in last year, I had basically one returning varsity player who saw a lot of minutes for me the previous year, and that was a girl named Emily Leary. And then coming into last year, that player got hit with a horrible health diagnosis. She actually was diagnosed with cancer right before the season started. So she had 2 surgeries in November, and thankfully was able to be cleared of cancer. But we were missing her, our only returning varsity player. We're missing her for the first part of the season, and her leadership as a 2-year captain as well. She's a kid who isn't going to go out and score 30 points a game for you and stuff like that, but that, the leadership, the confidence on the floor, the knowing what the coach wants you to do and stuff like that, not having that and having to put 5 new kids on the floor is tough. So my best player last year was actually a freshman. I had a girl come in named Hope Goodwine, who's exceptional. She's very, very good. And, it was a little bit of a learning process, me learning her and her learning me. She came from one of our middle schools. Somehow didn't get chosen for the 8th grade All-Star game. I don't understand how, even though she averaged 30 points a game as an 8th grader. But she came in, and she scored a whole bunch of points for us last year. She averaged about 17 points a game when she was the only kid on the floor who could score at times, and people would literally triple team her, which is hard to do to a point guard, but teams figured it out. Like, people would just chase her around and she would still score. First team, she was a first team all conference, the second highest vote getter in our conference, behind Peyton Gilmore, who was a real nice player. And, she did a great job. But we struggled last year. We struggled to find our identity. We struggled to find who we were, after losing that group of kids. And it was a rebuild year.
So did you have a game last year that kind of stands out in your mind that you would think would be a special game for you?
I do. We like I said, we played the first part of the year last year without Emily Leary. And it was difficult, having being told that a 17-year-old kid has cancer is tough, and it kind of hits pretty hard. And we weren't sure when she was coming back. And we knew that she was able to start working out a little bit at the beginning of January. she wasn't even suiting up yet. She wasn't even at full go yet. And then we played Haddon Township early in January, and she was able to get into the game. And that was probably the best moment for me, was just getting her back on the floor. She only played about 6 minutes the whole game, but just getting her into the game and letting her get out there and play. Like, you know, I told you, I treat my kids like they're my daughters. So like seeing her out there and playing and moving around. The other special moment probably was we went and played Haddon Heights at Haddon Heights. And Lauren Kendra is the head coach over there, and great people over at Haddon Heights. I love the people over at Haddon Heights. You know, they did a fundraiser, a cancer game fundraiser, and donated it to our program. We actually had another kid in our program last year, a freshman basketball player who had cancer as well. So we actually donated the money to her family. Her family was in need. So we actually donated the money to her family after that game. So we really appreciated what Haddon Heights did for us as well. That was actually really special. By the way, both those games were losses for us. So, you know, wins and losses sometimes aren't what matters to us. It's more about what is important.
Yeah, and if that doesn't, you know, prove that we're a community, I don't know what does. The fact that you have other schools that are rallying around other players that aren't even from their school. They're not, you know, I mean, they're from different towns, but you know, they see a need and they want to support. And I think that's what, you know, I think the whole game of basketball is about. But I think that's what's special about South Jersey as well. You know,
Yeah,
they're willing and they're ready, willing, and able to step up when need be. And it's not the first time that Haddon Heights has done that in the past. You know, because I know that at Audubon there was a player that was, you know, sickly as well, going back 3 or 4 years ago, and that same thing happened where they worked together and they were able to raise money for her. And I just think it's just great because it helps to raise spirits, and it just goes to show you that it's more than just about basketball.
Yeah,
You know?
no, they're great people over there, and you know, I was actually, for a hot minute, I was the head coach at Haddon Heights back, you know, for 1 year there before I got hired at, you know, before I came back over to Highland. But you know, I love that community. It's a great community. It's a wonderful community, and the people there are just fantastic. And you know, I incredible. I still have the picture on my phone. I go back and look at it of both of our teams together with our shirts on, and you know, it was almost one of the pictures I sent you. I almost considered, but I didn't feel comfortable sending it with all the different people in it. I you know, it was a little uncomfortable sending it because it did not get permission first, but I almost sent that picture to you as one of the important pictures to me.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. And you know, I love Haddon Heights. My niece is over there, so
Yeah,
we know the coaches very well. I mean, we've grown up with them, so I mean, they're just, you know, like I said, just another team in the community that just stand out in a different way besides basketball. And to me, that's just very, very impressive. I just love hearing those stories. So, you know, let's talk about this year. You know, things have definitely changed. I mean, you know, we live in a whole different world. I mean, you're an educator. I mean, I remember at least in this area, it was March 13th.
March
Remember
13th.
we left school, and I remember that I was sitting here and I was watching. I think it was Twitter at the time, or maybe Facebook Live, and Herb Conway, who was like a freeholder or something like that around here. He's from the Department of Health in Burlington County, and he basically went on and said, "We're going to shut schools down until spring break." And I was like, "This guy's nuts! 5 weeks, 6 weeks? That's like so long. It's almost a year."
Yeah.
So, you know, here we are today.
I'll tell you what, it's been, as an educator, it's been the hardest year. I tell people all the time, I've been an educator for 21 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. Every year that we've had ratings, I've been highly effective. I teach advanced placement classes. You know, I take my job very seriously. This is the hardest hardest time I've ever had to be a teacher. I feel like a first-year teacher every day, trying to figure out what to do, how to engage kids, how to get them to not be this the whole time. You know, looking at my forehead. And sorry, that probably wasn't great for the podcast. I apologize. Told you I'm a little awkward. But you know, this has been the hardest year ever to be an educator. But I'll tell you what, even worse than that, I feel so bad for our kids, man. Like, this has been educationally devastating for our kids, athletically devastating for our kids. Look at your daughter, man. Like, as a freshman last year, she should have been playing for a state championship, right?
Yeah.
She gets it the day before that the game's canceled.
And they found out on Twitter. The coach
Yeah,
didn't even tell them. They found out on
yeah,
Twitter.
yeah. He didn't even he didn't even know. The kids found out before he did. I mean, that's just awful. And you understand why. I mean, you get it. Why you get it? You get it. It stinks. You have entire groups of kids that lost an entire season last year.
Yeah.
Your spring athletes lost an entire season last year. I feel so awful for these kids, and then I'm just so thankful as a coach that my kids are getting a season right now. Quite honestly, I'm so thankful that my kids are having the opportunity to play. And knock on wood, we've made it through the season as healthy as we possibly could. We've had an issue over the last week or so. I was actually down to about eight or nine kids on, eight. I'll say 8.5. One kid was I didn't feel comfortable putting her in the game because of her injury, but we were down to about 8.5 kids on Thursday. No, Tuesday. Excuse me. I don't even know what day of the week it is. Today's Thursday, isn't it? On Tuesday, we were down to about 8.5 kids on Tuesday for our game that we had the other day because of health and injury and stuff like that. So you're just doing what you can to survive and making sure that the kids have the opportunity to play. I'm excited for them. I actually did an interview last night with Matt from South Jersey Sports Weekly.
Awesome.
I'm excited that the kids are going to have the opportunity to have their parents in the stands, in the support system there. I'm sure you're excited about that, Mike. You get to go see Gabby play.
Finally, we've been waiting.
Yeah, right. And not watch it on a screen and hope that it doesn't like glitch out on you. So, these kids have lost so much. I see what my daughter's, virtual some of the time. And I see what she has to do. And I feel so awful for these kids, man. Like it's just not right. I mean, as tough as it is on us adults, man, it's 10 times worse for these kids.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the problem you're dealing with is uncertainty and inconsistency because, at the drop of a hat, you're going remote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're shut down for 2 weeks and it's like the kids can't adjust. Sometimes their stuff, if they're doing hybrid, their stuff's in school.
Yeah, it happened to my kid on Friday. Mike, it happened to my kid last Friday. We got a phone call last Friday that our entire class got put out. Last Friday.
Yeah.
We had no idea. And so I had to be remote all week.
Yeah.
So, and she didn't have anything home with her. She had her math book. That was it. None of her other books.
It's I have to tell you, I was talking to Mike Brunswick from Morristown Friends. And this is before the podcast. I didn't share it on the podcast. But I was working with students this week, and I saw this video, and I'm going to share it with you after. I'll send you a link. But basically, it was this girl, and she was from Canada, and I think she was given an assignment, and basically the assignment was she had to portray how quarantine, affects her.
Mm-hmm.
So she made a 3-minute video, and it was just super powerful. I mean, it made me definitely, think twice about the way I was thinking about my daughter and treating them, because a lot of times they just lock themselves in the room all the time. Like, what are they doing now? Oh, they're in the room. Like, are they studying now? They're just in the room, and they're in the room all the time. And basically in this video, it's this girl, and she has a picture of the room, and she has a laptop. She puts it on the bed, and she looks, and you see pictures of like her and her friends, like at different events, like barbecue, swimming, this and that, and you hear kids playing. It's cool. And then all of a sudden it shows the picture of the laptop, and from being a teacher, the Google Classroom, work, missing assignments, due, overdue, whatever, and it's like late, and it's coming through. Then you see all these emails, and you see piled up emails, and then the last minute's the most powerful. It basically flashes to different pictures of the girl for 1 minute in different outfits and different emotions. Happy, sad, screaming, crying, frustrated, and it's just like it just totally portrays what's happening. And I think what's happening to me, I learned from that is, the kids basically are in the room, they go get something to eat, they go back to the room, they go watch TV for a little bit, they go back to the room. I mean, they don't interact with anything or anybody. And I think to me, the room used to be a safe place. You go relax, but now it's like, a prison almost, where they're kind of stuck and they can't get past those walls. And to me, like, that's the worst thing that happened with all this COVID. And I know it's off topic from the podcast, but I just want to see these kids have more opportunities, and I want to see things open up. And if it means me wearing my mask, I'll do whatever I need to take. I originally wasn't a person that wanted to get a vaccine. My wife, actually, nobody knows this, but my wife was extremely sick from COVID, and she was hospitalized for 6 weeks. So, you know, she's a long hauler now, and she's going for treatments, you know, still to this day, because she still has complications. You know, so I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But, you know, I'm actually thinking I'm going to get that vaccine because I want to be able to have, first of all, my life and my freedom, but I also want to be a part of the solution too. And I think if we don't do something about it, then our kids will never have that life back. And I wanted to have my kids to have their life back. I don't want to have your kids to have their life back, you know?
I'm right there with you, man. I listen, we need to do whatever we can to get out of this, you know, get our vaccines, get ourselves back to where we need to be, you know, get our businesses open. Listen, I know you're a business owner. I'm sure you want to get back to normal business. And, we talked earlier about my buddies who own business downtown and stuff like that. They want to be able to have their they're not operating normally and stuff like that. I want my kid to be able to go to the park normally, and this town, like, go ride or bike around and stuff like that without having to wear a mask and things like that. And it's, go to school and do those things. And I want to be able to do those things, man. I'll tell you what, I don't leave my house. I leave my house to go to work, and I come back, and that's all I do. And it gets old, it gets lonely, it gets tiring. I love my family, but it's like we don't get to go do stuff, and it's like I want to be able to take my kid to see wonderful places and do wonderful things. And maybe if I want to sign her up for karate class, we can go do that. You know what I mean? But, like, what do you do, man? Like, it's just like, this has been so hard on these. I feel so bad for our kids, man. And it's just not right. We need to. I just can't wait till this is over. Until we can get back to normal as best as possible. I'm right there with you, bro.
Yeah, man. It's going to take some time, but I think it's getting better. It really is. And I mean, just the fact that parents are allowed to go back into the gyms, I mean, that's going to give the kids a somewhat, like, normal feel. I know some parents are kind of crazy and they're yelling and screaming. They're probably better off not being in the gym. I mean, the one thing I noticed, though, with people wearing masks, a lot of them were less likely to scream at the officials and stuff like that. So one of the other reasons why I got into, like, taking pictures and videos in this podcast is it makes me be quiet. So if I'm taking pictures and I'm taking video, then I'm not the crazy parent yelling and screaming on the court. So it kind of has gotten me settled down. So for, your stories about, coaches yelling at the referees, I won't say I ever yelled at a referee, but I was always the one that was like, oh man, making all these noises. And you know what happens? I realize I'm taking away from my kids' experience.
Yeah.
Because every time I say something, or if I make a comment, they get embarrassed, or, you know what I mean? And it's distracting them. So I just learned that I have to find things on my own, because it's not about me anymore. It's about my kids and about letting them have their experience. So, I mean, that was a learning experience, and I wasn't the best coming up, but, it's gotten better. So I learned to take pictures, I learned to take video. And then with the podcast, this is where I'll spend my energy. I meet some friends, meet some new people, learn about kids, learn about their programs. This is fantastic. Yeah. So what are some positive things that you can look forward to this year? I know that we only had 15 games, but, like, what are you trying to gear your team to look forward towards, and what are your goals for this year?
So I'll tell you what, I've been pleasantly surprised this year, and our goal is to be competitive for our division. We're doing division. We're playing for a division title. We're being competitive for a division title. We have a big challenge in front of us. Delsey is our, returning champion. They returned just about everybody from their team last year, minus one player, who was a very good player, a girl named Camille Morton. But they, we think we can compete with them. I have a great group of new players that came in this year. I have a freshman girl named Breland Leary, who is a real nice player. I have a freshman named Daisha Mack, who's a real nice player. And then I have Hope Goodwine, who's a sophomore this year, who's a real nice player. And then I have a couple juniors who after getting beat around last year and that year where we got beat up, a girl named Ashley Dean and Sydney Wright, who are just know what I want them to do, and they just go out and do it, and they go out and play above their head, height wise, they're not afraid to go compete. They play real hard, and we're being real competitive right now. We're still learning. We're making young silly mistakes at times, as will happen with 3 freshmen on the floor sometimes, but we're also being pretty competitive. We're at 6-2 right now. And we're undefeated in our division right now with 3 big division games coming up with Delsey, Deptford, and Triton over the next 5 days, I think 4 or 5 days. We'd like to, stay in that driver's seat and compete for that title. So that's our goal. We do have a 3-game tri-county playoff, which I don't know. We really haven't got the details on what that means yet. So our goal is to be competitive and learn and continue to grow as a group and get better for next year. So
I think the biggest key now is just to keep all the teams healthy.
Oh,
so
that first.
Otherwise, you're going to need that for just makeup games and things like that.
Yeah, number one. In fact, I had that on my thing to say. Number one is to stay healthy and stay safe and keep everybody healthy and safe. That is always number one. And I apologize that I forgot to say that.
Yeah, that's what I probably was going to lead to next. I was going to ask you about, because you talked about early leaders. So I wanted to know, what do you expect from your captains on your team? And then I was going to ask you, the keys to your success. Obviously, you said, staying healthy, but what are some other keys to success? So your captains and keys to success for this year.
So I think, as far as what I want from my captains, I think that, I want my captains to kind of be an extension of my voice, an extension of my coaching staff's voice. My coaching staff, I love my coaching staff right now. I have my longtime assistant, a guy named Jeremy Smith, who I've worked with for 21 years now. He's just the guy that you want to coach with you. He does everything you ask him to do. Never, says boo about anything. Will do, just anything you need him to do. He does it for you. He's a great coach, great guy, loves the kids. And then, Brian Leary, Coach Brian Leary is my other assistant coach right now. And he's another fantastic coaching mind who he's right now my coach who goes out and if I need someone to jump on the kids and get after them, he goes out and jumps on the kids and get after them. Now he has an advantage. His kid's on my team, so he can yell at his daughter if he needs to, really yell at her. But, and the kids kind of respond to him a little bit differently because, he's dad sometimes, he's been on my staff for a number of years now, and he's our head football coach. Funny, both of my assistant coaches are football coaches, and they coach basketball sometimes like they coach football, which I don't know if you've ever seen a football coach, but they coach a little bit differently. But my leaders, the kids that I want to be my leaders need to be an extension of my voice. You can't be the coach, who is, as the coach, you can't be the one who's demanding all the time. That has to come from the kids sometimes. The kids have to police themselves sometimes. The kids have to get after each other sometimes, and not in a negative way. I think that gets misconstrued. I think the kids, sometimes kids think being a leader is screaming at each other and it has to be the motivational thing of, hey, come on, let's go, pick it up, let's go, let's get after it. We have the expectation that if we're doing a drill, if you're not actively engaged in that drill, you're supposed to be encouraging your teammates. Well, the leaders are the ones who jump on you if you're not doing that. In our gym, you're never allowed to say the word "I can't." So if somebody says that word "I can't," everything stops and everybody does push-ups. And the leaders police that. So that's the type of stuff that I look for them to, to help us with and to get after. And then sometimes, like I said, we believe in scold in private, praise in public. There's some times where I'll take my leader aside and be like, listen, either you're going to motivate them or I'm going to motivate them. Things aren't going the way we want it. You go motivate them or I'm going to motivate them. And those kids know that at that point they need to go get the troops going, get the kids moving and get that turned around. So, that's kind of what they do. And then, of course, their biggest job is probably, after it is me, the one that has to go out and motivate them, they're the one that has to basically get them, make sure that their feelings are okay.
Yeah, it's hard, man, because you play so many different roles, and it's like you don't ever want to have to be the tough guy, but if they're not understanding, getting the message, one way, you're gonna have to deliver the message somehow so they're gonna understand.
Yeah.
So it's good to have all hands on deck, and really a lot of support from your coaches, and also from the captains, and that way it can trickle down and get the message across, and also so it'll benefit the program,
Sure.
And they realize you're just not singling out one person. It's the team that needs to step up and try to correct the different mistakes, things like that, which is perfect.
Yeah,
So what about your keys to success?
Um,
What do you need to do?
our keys to success this year, man, like, again, first and foremost, stay healthy, get healthy, because as I said, we've been pretty banged up this week. Get healthy, and then stay healthy. And then, our youth, man, our youth, we got to just continue to develop, continue to grow and develop as a group. At times we have 3 freshmen on the floor. That is what it is. And, one of those freshmen has never been coached before. This is her first year playing real organized basketball. So, she's athletic, she's raw, but she does things like a kid who's never been coached before. So understanding that, you just have to continue to develop them and get them to playing the way that we're trying to play now, because it's completely different than we've ever played before, based on who our makeup is at this point.
Yeah. So we're getting to the end, and I always ask, for coaches' input and their ideas. To me, South Jersey girls basketball really needs more coverage. It needs more press, and I think it's starting to come around again. I mean, there was a time in the last couple of years, I think, that it kind of, and with the crashing of the papers and papers merging and folding, and people going away from print and going to digital now, like it started to kind of die off. But I've seen a resurgence this year as far as coverage, and we were talking about that earlier. With the Courier Post now is bringing back your Mean 15. With Tom Rimbach and McGurk, and then also Kevin Emmons. He's also been doing some stuff. And then there's other local guys that are smaller, like Mike from SJBIT, who's always putting the scores out there, and he's trying to do something positive. So there is some energy going, but what do you think that we can do here in South Jersey to build up our, I guess, so quote unquote brand?
Yeah. I'm right there with you with the coverage, man. And I'm not sure what the answer 100% is. But I do think it's sad over the last several years. I know, back in the day when people used to actually read newspapers, they used to do great articles. I mean, I know there used to be like full page, the varsity section of the newspaper would be awesome. And there used to be great spreads with the box scores and the articles and the profiles of the kids and stuff like that. But the internet's basically taken that over at this point. And I think the problematic thing, and you and I talked about this earlier, is that everything is a subscription now. Everything is a subscription now. And you have to subscribe to all these different sites to get content, which I get. I get that they're, it's capitalism and they're trying to make money, and I completely understand that. But it's just tough. And it gets hard to even support them all, because how many are you going to support? I can think of 4 off the top of my head that I could go right now and support, and then my wife would get upset with me that I'm spending all this money. I do love the fact that Mike Hallahan and SJIBT is doing his weekly telecast, and he's doing his work, and he does great stuff, and has been for I want to say 12-13 years. Mike, I know it's wrong, don't text me and yell at me. However many years that the SJ, I'll get a text. I know I'll get a text. But however many years the SJIBT has been going now, I'm pretty sure it's 13. And he does great work with that and does a great job. With you now, Mike, with your work that you've been doing, and I know your intention is to expand on all that. But you look at a guy like, and I know you mentioned him earlier, like a Tiny Green up at the Shore. Dude, that guy, there is no bigger cheerleader for Shore basketball. Now some of the stuff that guy puts out, I mean, and he's hilarious, man. That dude tweets like 45, 50 times a day. And some of it you're like what are you talking about, Tiny? But like, man, like I'll tell you what, he gets his kids recognition, man. He gets his kid noticed. He gets those teams press. He gets those teams everything. There's no greater cheerleader up there, and there's no greater person getting those kids information, and people listen to him.
Yeah.
So, I think that's where this is going to go. Quite honestly, I think you're going to see more people like Mike Callahan or Mike Recinto, people like that who are going to, do their own little, do their own podcast or do their own type of, content like that. And I think that's where we're probably going to end up going.
Yeah, I just would love to see it grow and continue to grow. One of the things I brought up is, and I think maybe you can relate to it. When you were a kid growing up, like the kids from the other town or the other school were like your arch enemy, like your ultimate rivals. And I think that, we've got to get past that. Like you have some sister schools in your district. You said Timber Creek and Triton. I mean, obviously when you're on the court, they're your adversary, but really, if we promote them and we promote each other, we're helping ourselves, especially if they're a good team and you can give them a good game. It only, furthers your name and builds your brand and builds your program. So I think that, schools need to be more supportive, and that's happening. It definitely is. I see that around. They're liking each other's posts or commenting on each other. But that's got to happen, more, even if it's not in your area. I think you support. The other thing too is parents have to start doing it more. And I know we're in an era where, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we always want to tell the world about our kids. But the problem you run into about that is eventually people stop listening, and it's nothing. No offense to anybody. I know you love your kids. I love my kids.
Right.
But if you're only out there for yourself, then you're not going to get anything in return. So I think that if you can use social media as a way to build relationships with other people, we're all going to benefit. So if you play a great game, why can't you congratulate another player, another team, and say, hey, great job, great, keep up the good work, or you can't wait till we play again next time. So I just think that the community itself needs to kind of rally together. And if anybody's doing well, like the year that you guys were number 22 in the country, let's all cheer for you. I mean, right now, Paul VI went up to St. John Vianney, and I mean, they basically hung with St. John Vianney. It wasn't until the last couple of minutes of the game where the game opened up. But I mean, it was a close game the whole time. That puts South Jersey on the map,
Yes.
And we can all be happy for them. So, and we can support them, and we can support their players, and I think that's what needs to be done. So
yeah, no, and then the next day, I think it was the next day, beat Stewart Day, right?
Yes.
And then the next day she beat Stewart Day. The Eagles beat Stewart Day. So, I agree with you, and I try my best to do that when, I see teams go up and have a great win or something like that. I commented on it. I like seeing, I'm I don't know if you've seen my Twitter. I'm stupid on Twitter. I'm like stupid comment. I'm awkward as anything. And, and people watching this who know me are laughing because they're like, yeah, he's stupid awkward, but I don't care. I just want to grow the game. I promote, I want people to get recognition and to have, the greatest amount of recognition as possible and the greatest experience as possible. It's all about kids, man. I want the kids to have fun. I want the kids to have a great experience and to enjoy it, and to love this game. That's what it's really about.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to see them develop more of a sisterhood, knowing that if you come from South Jersey, realize we're from the same area. It's like, when we go somewhere and everybody says, where are you from? Oh, we're from Philly. We always say we're from Philly because nobody knows, if I say Marlton, everybody's like, where's that? But if I say Philly, everybody knows Philadelphia, and you're proud to say that you're from the area, just like the people that are down the shore, they're proud from where they're at. I think that the more we can you know, be proud of where we come from, and we can support others that come from our area, I think it's only going to benefit everybody.
Right. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, so let's get ready to wrap things up. I know you have some things going on. I
Yep.
really appreciate everything. You know, you know, just coming on the podcast, you know, sharing your stories. You know, I wish you the best of luck. We'll continue to support your program, and you know, hope to talk to you soon and catch up soon. Okay.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you, and good luck to you, and good luck to Gabby. And I will talk to you real soon. All right, pal.
Take care.
All right, bye, guys.